People think my life changed because I left medicine or because I built a business or because I became confident, but none of that was the cause. All of that came after I started practicing one habit long before there were any external results to prove that it was working. And it's not what you think. What's interesting is once I saw it, I realized that this is the exact habit that most people never build. And that's why change doesn't stick. And just to be clear, this isn't about me. It's about the one habit that quietly determines whether your life actually changes or stays on repeat. So let's get into it. So the habit is this: you start acting from the identity you want before you feel ready or confident or qualified. Music. And I know that probably sounds simple. In fact, it might sound so obvious that you are tempted to think, okay, got it. That makes sense. But here's the problem. This is one of those ideas that many people understand: music, intellectually, and then completely misapply in real life. Music. They either try to force it or fake it or burn themselves out trying to become someone overnight. Music. So, in this video, I'm not just telling you what the habit is. I'm going to walk you through 5 very specific ways that this habit shows up in real life, the mistakes that people make, and how to practice it in a way that actually changes your behavior and your confidence over time. These 5 music shifts are the difference between understanding this idea and actually becoming someone new. So, here's the first way that this habit shows up in real life, and this is where most people get tripped up. Most people make decisions based on how they feel in the moment. If they feel confident, they act. If they feel motivated, they follow through. If they feel uncertain or tired or self doubting, they hesitate. But here's the problem with that: feelings are reactive, they're shaped by your past identity, not your future one. So, if you wait music to feel like the person that you want to become, you'll be waiting a very long time. This habit flips the order. Instead of asking, do I feel ready to do this? You ask, what would the version of me I'm becoming do next? And then, this is the key part. You do that even if your feelings haven't caught up yet. Not dramatically, not perfectly, just consistently. This is exactly what I started doing long before anything in my life looked different on the outside. I didn't suddenly feel confident. I didn't wake up one day feeling like a different person. I simply started making small decisions from a different reference point. And over time, my brain started going, oh, this is who we are now. Here's why this matters for you. Your brain doesn't update your identity based on your intentions. It updates it based on your behavior. What you repeatedly do is what your brain uses as evidence. So, music, every time you make a decision from your future identity, even just a small one, you're teaching your brain something new about who you are. Music. And no, this doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It means you stop letting them run the show. Because feelings are great, but they are terrible life coaches. If you've ever said things like, I'll start when I feel more confident, I just don't feel like myself lately. I know what to do. I just can't get myself to do it. Then this is the missing piece. Music. This shows up in moments of visibility too. So let's say that you're in a meeting or a class or a group. You don't feel articulate, you don't feel confident, but you raise your hand and ask one question anyway. Not because it's brilliant, but because that's what someone who trusts their voice does. Your brain logs it. We speak music up now. So this is shift number 1. Make decisions based on who you're becoming, not how you feel. You don't need to feel like the future version of you. You need to start acting like that person and then let the feelings catch up later. Okay, so here is the second way that this habit shows up. And honestly, this one changes everything. Music. If you've ever tried to change your life, you already know this moment. You decide you're going to do something differently. You're clear, you're committed. And then a voice, music, shows up. It sounds reasonable, familiar, and very convincing. It says things like, that's just not you. You've never been good at this. Be realistic. Why are you even trying? Most people think the solution here is to argue with that voice, to convince it, to overpower it with logic or motivation or affirmations. But that rarely works because that voice isn't a problem to be solved. It's music, simply your old identity doing its job. Your brain is designed to keep you consistent, not ambitious. So when you try to act outside of who you've been, your brain pushes back, not because you're wrong, but because you're unfamiliar. So here's the shift that changes everything. And this is shift number two. You stop negotiating with that voice. Stop negotiating with your old identity. You don't debate it, you don't shame it, and you definitely don't let it vote. You acknowledge it and then you move on. Something like, ah, yes, there you are, and then you do the thing anyway. This is incredibly important. You do not need to defeat your old identity. You just need to stop putting it in charge. Every time you negotiate, you reinforce it. Every time you comply, you strengthen it. But every time that you act without consulting it, you weaken its influence. This is exactly what happened for me long before anything dramatic changed. Music, I didn't wake up one day feeling like a different person. I just stopped letting the old version of me be the decision maker. And over time, that voice got quieter. Not music because I fought it, but because it stopped being relevant. So here's how you practice this starting today. When you notice hesitation or self doubt, music, or internal debate, don't ask, is this fear valid? Ask, who is music this advice coming from? If it's coming from your past identity, you already have your answer. You don't need permission to move forward. You don't need consensus. You just need to stop reopening conversations that are already over. So, here's the third way that this habit shows up. And this one is crucial if you've ever struggled with confidence or self rust. Most people think that confidence comes from feeling ready. So, they wait. They wait until they feel motivated, until they feel certain, until they feel like they finally believe in themselves. But that's not how confidence actually works. Confidence is not a personality trait, it's a byproduct, and it's built from evidence. Your brain doesn't ask, how do I feel about this? It asks, what proof do I have? This is why affirmations often fall flat. You can tell yourself, I'm confident, all day long. But if your actions don't back that up, your nervous system isn't convinced. Here's the key distinction. This is important. Music identity doesn't change because you think differently. It changes because you start behaving in alignment with a new self image. And then your brain updates accordingly. Your emotions are loud, but they are not reliable indicators of who you're becoming. Evidence is quieter, but it compounds. This is why tiny acts of follow through matter so much more than big emotional moments. When you keep small promises to yourself, when you show up even imperfectly, your brain starts updating its internal model of you. Oh, we do what we say we'll do. Oh, we don't panic and quit anymore. Oh, we can handle this. That's self rust. And self rust is what most people are actually missing, not motivation. There's a well established principle in psychology that identity is reinforced and stabilized through action. In other words, you don't think your way into a new identity, you act in alignment with it. And your brain concludes this is who we are now. This is exactly why I am so insistent about starting small. Not because small goals are impressive, but because they're believable. Your nervous system is not impressed by your vision board, it is impressed by receipts. Music. So, here's what this looks like for you practically. Instead of asking, do I feel confident enough to do this? Ask, music. What's the smallest version of this that I can follow through on today? Then, music, do that. Let the evidence stack up. Over time, something really important happens. You stop needing pep talks, you stop needing hype, you stop questioning yourself at every turn because music, your brain has proof, and proof is calming. Think about something as simple as opening your bank app. You don't feel ready to look, you don't feel calm about it, so you avoid it. But the moment that you open it anyway, even if the numbers aren't what you want, your brain registers something important. I don't avoid reality. I can handle this. That's not about money. That's about agency. Or take something even more ordinary. You're on the couch and you're tired. You've watched one episode and you're tempted to binge a few more. The old identity says one more won't matter, but the future version of you turns the TV off anyway. Not with willpower, not with guilt, just because she said music, would. That single moment teaches your brain we stop when we say we'll stop. So, shift number 3 is this: treat evidence as more important than emotion. All right, let's move on to the fourth way that this habit shows music up. And this is where a lot of people get it backwards. Most people think change is about willpower, about being stronger, music more disciplined, more motivated. But the truth is, the people who change their lives aren't stronger, they're strategic. They stop asking themselves to fight their environment every single day. Your environment is shaping your behavior constantly, usually without you realizing it. What's on your phone, what's in your calendar, what you tolerate in your relationships, what you default to when you're tired, those things matter far more than your intentions. So, if you're trying to build a new identity, but your environment is still optimized for the old one, you're playing on hard mode. This is where the habit of acting from the identity you want becomes very practical. You start designing your surroundings to music, make the future version of you the path of least resistance. Instead of asking, why can't I stick to this? You ask, what would this version of me no longer negotiate with? For example, the future you doesn't keep apps on your home screen that drain your energy. The future you doesn't leave important things to decision fatigue. The future you doesn't tolerate constant interruptions or low level chaos. This doesn't require dramatic life overhaul. In fact, it works best music when it's quiet. When I look back, some of the biggest shifts in my life didn't come from huge declarations. They came from small environmental changes that removed friction. Things like deciding in advance, setting non negotiables, simplifying choices so I didn't have to rely on motivation. And here's the important part, this is not about becoming rigid or controlling, it's about becoming supported. Because when your environment supports the identity that you're becoming, you stop feeling like you're constantly starting over. You stop burning energy on decisions that you've already made. And that frees up a surprising amount of mental space, which is something that most people mistake for discipline, but is actually relief. So, shift number 4 is this: design your environment to support the new identity. If you want this habit to stick, the habit of acting from the identity that you want, don't just focus on your behavior. Focus on the defaults around you. Music. Because in many cases, defaults decide outcomes. Okay, here is the 5th and final way that this habit shows up. And this one is especially important if you're afraid of being seen or judged or misunderstood. Music. Most people think that reinvention has to be announced. They think they need a big declaration, a label, a moment where they tell the world, this is who I am now. But that's actually one of the fastest ways to put unnecessary pressure on yourself. The most successful identity shifts happen quietly at first. They happen in private before there's an audience. This is something that I see over and over again. People stall not because they don't know what to do, but because music, they're afraid of what other people will think while they're still becoming. So here's the reframe: you don't need witnesses for your growth. You need music reps. You practice the identity in low stakes situations. You rehearse it when no one is watching. Music. You let it solidify internally before you expose it to the world. This is how confidence is actually built, not through visibility, but through familiarity. By the time other people notice the change, it already feels normal to you. So let's say you want to become a writer. Most people think that that would mean announcing it, music posting about it, telling people, I'm working on a book. But the identity shift actually happens much earlier and much more quietly. It happens when you sit down in the morning and write one paragraph. Music, no one sees it, no one comments on it. It's not good yet. But your brain registers something important. We write. Music. You do that again the next day and the next, and before anyone else ever calls you a writer, your identity has already caught up. Music. By the time you share it publicly, you're not fragile. You're familiar with who you are. Music, you're not trying to convince anyone. You're not performing a new version of yourself. You're simply practicing being that person consistently enough that it becomes real. And when music, you finally do step into the light, whether that's a new role or a new chapter or a new way of showing up, you're not fragile. You're grounded. Now, if you step back and look at everything that we have talked about, you'll notice something important. This habit, music, doesn't rely on motivation. It doesn't require confidence first, and it doesn't ask you to become someone else overnight. Music. It works because it removes the biggest obstacle to change. Music. Waiting. Waiting to feel ready. Waiting to feel confident. Waiting for certainty or permission. Instead, music. This habit quietly changes how you make decisions. And when your decisions change, music, your identity follows. That's why this works when so many other approaches don't. You're no longer trying to fix yourself. You're no longer trying to force belief. Your music simply showing your brain through action who you're becoming. And identity always catches up. So, music here is something that I want you to sit with. If you practice this one habit, just this one, for the next 6 months, you wouldn't music just have different habits. You would have a different relationship with yourself. You would trust yourself more, second guess us less, and make decisions from a steadier place. Not music because you tried harder, but because you stopped waiting. So, if this resonated and you are in a season where you know that you're ready for change, but you want it to be sustainable, not exhausting, then I would love for you to join me inside the reset. It's my free 5 day challenge, and it will help you to start applying all this in a very practical, no stress way. I will pop the link in the description below so you can just click that and music gets started. And when this video ends, I want you to watch the next one that I have linked on the screen that follows. It's called How to Reinvent Yourself. Feed your mind the future that you want, because identity change doesn't happen in isolation. What you expose your mind to every day either reinforces who you've been or supports who you're becoming. That video will help you to make this habit stick, and I will see you there. Okay, hang on. Scratchy voice again. Okay, that's size. Okay. Things like music deciding in advance. Laughter. I froze. Deciding in advance. Okay, all right, that is a wrap.